Warning: The Thin Blue Line, Harry Bosch, contains adult content. Harry and others use profanity, adult language, and discuss adult topics. One more warning: this podcast may contain spoilers. I must stress this for this chapter and the entire series of Harry Bosch, so please proceed with extreme caution. He had been to the sleep disorder clinic at the VA in Sepulveda, but the shrinks couldn't help him. They told him he was in a cycle. He would have extended periods of deep sleep trances into which torturous dreams would invade. This would be followed by months of insomnia, the mind reacting defensively to the terrors that awaited in sleep. Your mind has repressed the anxieties you feel over your part in the war, the doctors told him. You must assuage these feelings in the waking hours before sleep time can progress undisturbed. But the doctors didn't understand. What was done was done. There was no going back to repair what had happened. You can't patch a wounded soul with a Band-Aid. He showered and afterwards studied his face in the mirror and remembered how unkind time had been to Billy Mello. Hello, and welcome to the Thin Blue Line podcast, Harry Bosch. I am Philip Parker, a retired detective, and joining me today is my baby brother, Alan Parker, who is also a retired vice officer.
Hey, this is Alan. Please subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And please rate us 5 stars. To show you how grateful we are, we're willing to bribe you by sending out a case of donuts. Please follow us on Twitter at thinblueline_podcast and follow us on our Facebook page.
Last time on the Thin Blue Line podcast, Harry Bosch, we discussed and talked about the first chapter, which involved a young graffiti artist who had called the police having seen a body taken from a Jeep and put into a water pipe. During an investigation, LAPD Detective Harry Bosch finds the body of Billy Meadows, another tunnel rat and one of his Vietnam wartime friends. He uncovers evidence that connects Meadows to an unsolved bank robbery in the city. During this episode, we will be taking a deep dive into the Black Echo, Part 2, Monday, May 21st. As always, there's the prerequisite of spoiler alerts. Again, it's our intention to stay away from spoilers, but they might happen, so proceed with caution. And now, the Thin Blue Line podcast, Harry Bosch. Let's open up the murder book and turn the page to the chronological record so that we can do an investigative summary of the information gathered thus far in this chapter. After waking up, Bosch reflects on his visit to the sleep disorder clinic and the diagnosis his lack of sleep was due to his experience in the Vietnam War.
Bosch heads to the office where he sees a young boy handcuffed to a bench. Bosch busies himself typing his crime report, and when he Xeroxes the forms, he notices the kid is gone.
Per his habit, Bosch always keeps a copy of his murder book to read it daily, to look for new angles and clues.
Bosch omits the investigating officer's chronological report, the connection between Meadows and the Westland, and his visits to the pawn shop in Bremer, wanting to talk to the FBI first.
Bosch meets with Special Agent Eleanor Wish and tells her that he believes his homicide is related to their Westland investigation and wants to discuss possible suspects. Bosch produces the FBI bulletin and a picture of the bracelet matching O'Banner's Polaroid and says that the guy who pawned it 6 weeks ago is his victim and probably was killed in retaliation for pawning the jewelry.
Special Agent Wish tells Bosch that she can't help him in this investigation and that he has to go through official channels to request the assistance of the FBI.
Upon leaving, Bosch gets a call from Edgar, who tells Bosch that he was trying to get Meadows' military record, and he was advised that the FBI had already secured both his and Meadows' record.
While at the payphone, Bosch sees Special Agent Wish leaving her office. For some unknown reason, Bosch decides to follow her into a restaurant.
Special Agent Wish is put off that Bosch followed her. Bosch explains that he understands but is puzzled that armed with the information he provided that she had given him the official request routine. Special Agent Wish informs Bosch that after he left, her office, a call was made to his officials and that Bosch would be taken off the case.
In response, Bosch threatened that if the FBI doesn't rescind the request, that he would go to the press with the information he has obtained thus far in this investigation.
Bosch returns to the station and is interrogated by Edgar and Lieutenant Pounds, along with Detectives Lewis and Clark, who are members of the Internal Affairs Division's IAD. Lieutenant Pounds announces that Bosch and Edgar are off the case and orders them to tell him everything concerning the investigation thus far.
Bosch states the FBI has verified his Mexico alibi and cleared him and claims new evidence has panicked the FBI into making the call. The FBI has taken over the murder case, folding it into the bank case.
Bosch checks the database on gang and juvenile offenders, and the SHA hits 343 times on a moniker in a file. But he narrows it to 19 when Black and Latinos are excluded. Bosch concentrates on the variations of Shark and comes up with the name Sharky, a street name of a 17-year-old Edward Neese, who is a graffiti artist who has no known gang affiliation.
3 months earlier, Sharky had been found sleeping in that pipe. Feeling sorry for Sharky, that pipe was the best place to sleep and feel safe. Bosch contacted his probation officer after reading through Sharky's arrest report. The PO informed Bosch that Sharky's problem was his mother, a telephone whore. The PO explained to Bosch that a telephone whore were a person who fulfilled sexual fantasies via the telephone.
Utilizing information in Sharky's file, Bosch responds to Sharky's home. Bosch meets Sharky's mother, Veronica Neese, who is very uncooperative with Bosch, telling him she had clients waiting and that finding Sharky was his job, not hers.
Sorry, it's so fucked up.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Bosch went home and was greeted with an anonymous phone message concerning his status of the Meadow murder investigation. The message, who Bosch deduced was from Clark from IAD, stated that the FBI had changed their mind and that IAD would be watching. Bosch then received a call from Lieutenant Pounds, who also advised Bosch that the FBI stated that they had overreach in the meeting between them and Bosch.
Lastly, Bosch received a phone call from Special Agent Wish confirming that he would be working with her. Bosch and Wish agrees to meet the next day.
Detective Lewis and Clark are given further instruction by Deputy Chief Irving. Irving orders the detective to continue building the case against Bosch concerning IAD matters. Asshole.
Sharky and his crew put in play a plan to target gay men for robbery. After a conversation with a man in a Jaguar named Jack, Sharky and Jack agrees to return to Jack's home to quote-unquote relax. Upon arrival to Jack's residence, Sharky unlocks the front door, and a short time later, members of Sharky's crew enters Jack's home and attacks him. We ended last podcast with you, and we're talking about how Harry had a dream that made him cry, and he was revisiting his life and his experiences in the tunnel. And so we picked this chapter up with him waking up from that dream, and him thinking about his visit to the different VA doctors in Sepulveda. And one of the things that just stuck out for me is from this particular chapter. And again, from the book, he said, but the doctors didn't understand what was done was done. There's no going back to repair what happened. You can't patch a wounded soul with a Band-Aid. I'm like, Michael.
Yeah, but do you think that's more self-preservation and the character protecting himself, or do you think he really means that?
Oh, no, definitely. Oh, well, again, one of the things that just keeps you and I so enthralled with this whole Michael Connelly's writing is how true it is. And there are things that I know I just put it out that I've seen and know, and I don't want to talk about that I've seen through my police career. And that's just the mind, like you said, preserving itself so you can function. And when he said, it struck me when he said, you can't put a patch on a wounded soul with a Band-Aid. Like, wow.
Yeah.
So I thought that was so cool about, how it struck a chord in me, because I totally get that. You you can't patch a wounded soul with a Band-Aid. That kind of stuck out to me.
Well, it's almost like you
Um,
can't unsee certain things.
right.
Like one thing that comes to mind, I don't know why this just popped in my head, but I remember there was a case of child abuse where it was a dark skinned baby, African American, black, I don't know how to put it, being delicate. But
Mm-hmm.
the mother was tired of the kid crying, and the kid did something
Right.
bad. So the kid was forced to sit on a radiator, and they lifted the baby off the radiator. And when they did
Oh.
that, it removed part of the skin and left it on the radiator. And when you looked
Ooh.
at the hind parts of the kid, it was
Right.
bright white. And it's like the contrast in skin color, like the dark skinned baby with the white tissue damage. It's like, how the fuck do you get rid of that out of your head? And that was over 20
You
years
don't.
ago, and it just literally popped into my head. So, yeah, you're right. How
Yeah.
do you repair a wounded soul?
With a Band-Aid. With a lot of therapy, hopefully,
And alcohol.
And I guess you never really, I guess you never really get through it. But you just learn how to process and deal
Yeah,
with it.
and it takes a toll.
It does. Again, through it also, I kind of, again, again in chapter 2, in the first book in chapter 2, I believe Michael was still developing the image of Harry to us, the audience. And one of the things that he picked up on was, he picked up his tie and it with gladiator helmets on it, and then he had his tie clip with the pin 187 on it. So again, you see Harry, I'm a gladiator, and I got 187 pin. That's who I am. So again, not just physically, but with a visual presentation, you see who Harry is. And I kind of like that.
That it's funny about that. It reminds me of that movie, The Departed, and when they had that conversation with Matt Damon and what's that boy's name? The other one, I can't. Leonardo DiCaprio, and they had that conversation. Right. Do you want to be the real police, or do you want to go out and wear the T-shirts and stuff? And it's interesting when you look at Harry Bosch. He's kind of a mix of both. You have those cops that go to the bars and they're wearing the cop shirts and look at me, I got the flag with the blue line going through it. And then you got the cops who have no clue are the police. And you're like, how the fuck are you even on this department? And usually they do some of the best work. So and I gravitate more towards the latter now. Like when I first got on, I like to wear all that cool stuff. And then I just realized it makes me a target and it's really not cool. So I don't want you to know I was the police.
Well, you know what? Actually, you again, feeding off our last podcast. And again, audience, bear with me if I keep referring back, not because I'm pretty sure you're a very attentive audience. So be patient with me. And if I do it too much, leave a comment and I will adjust. But going back on our last podcast, we said we want people reacting to us opposed to us reacting to them. Yeah. So if I wreak cop all over me, and both of us been in the investigative field, so we are in plain clothes or not in a uniform. So if I have a tactical advantage by you not knowing I'm a police officer. So I kind of like that.
Yeah,
so yeah. That goes back to what you were just saying. Let's go back and forth. I'm just going over some of the things that stand out about this. So again, he's getting ready for the day. He woke up. He's getting ready for the day. He goes into the back to the Hollywood division and start typing up his notes and everything for that particular, all the notes and everything he gathered so far. And again, to just show you the how ancient this is. He's typing on the typewriter. He had finished all the myriad of forms for that particular investigation. And one thing I kind of like about that, because I totally get, you're starting to put your case together. You're on the hunt. And so you like to see all your paperwork together. Again, sounds kind of crazy, but once you start, it kind of like crystallizes your investigative method by putting it in writing. It makes it real.
Yeah, and that's where your OCD really comes into play.
Who has OCD?
Yeah, okay. Well, it's funny, like, as this chapter started to unfold, one of the things that stuck out too for me was how everyone has a nickname.
Yeah.
And I can remember your nickname more than I can remember your real name. And I use that to jog a
Right.
memory. And Harry does the same
Right.
thing, like his nicknames for certain characters. Like, for instance, his lieutenant,
Yeah.
Pounds. We had a lieutenant. I'm not going to name his name, but we called him Pockets. And it's along the same line
I
because he
know.
was so
You know what's funny?
small.
You know what's funny? That guy, he ascended. Did he ascend to the commander level after?
Dude, he's
Was he
probably
like
like
at one time he was like,
Secretary of
but
National
yeah,
Security now
no,
or
but
something.
no matter
Yeah,
what,
he's the guy that's just going to
but
keep
no matter
climbing the
what,
ranks.
I don't care what rank he is, he's always gonna be known as Pockets.
Right, because he's so small. Instead of having two pockets on his butt, he's got like one big pocket. He couldn't even carry all his equipment on a Sam Brown belt, so he had to sling his radio across because it wouldn't fit because he's too small. So Pounds and Pocket, I'm like, but it's just like, but how we use nicknames to jog our memory and stay on top of stuff. And it's like you wish you could give yourself a nickname, but you can't. But everyone has a nickname on the department.
You don't nickname yourself. And anyone who does. Hey, listeners, if someone gives themselves a nickname, you stay away from that person. Yeah. Again, so going back and forth, one of the things, just keeping the story going forward, he then, Michael setting up, he sets you up, again, because I've gone through all these books, so I see the setup, but one of Harry's habits is he breaks into the admin office and steals a new binder. I've had to do that because I don't know why admin thinks that you can't take these binders and give them to your kids, but they have to lock up stuff. I mean, everything.
Well, that's kind of funny you said that, Phil, because I know in certain instances where people actually do that kind of stuff. It's like, wait a minute, I got the school supply list. I'm not going to fucking Target in the morning when I get off. Billy needs a new notebook. What's over there? So I don't think that's too far-fetched.
But what he did, one of his habits was he also made 2 copies of the murder book. He kept one murder book for the general population, and then he kept his own murder book on the side, and which, again, Michael's setting you up for another book, and that's one of, again, if I ever have the opportunity to interview him, I'm going to ask him that, again, how far out when he made this book, was he thinking to make other books? Because,
well, specifically with that was actually a couple books, plural, where that was actually relevant. I don't want to say and give it away, like, Chasing the Dime, Bloodwork. Yeah, there's a couple of books.
Right, but that's the whole point. I mean, when how far out was he sketching, or I don't know the writer's terminology. How far was he thinking in this book was to write the next book, or reference to these, or were these little catchphrases, or what in his experience made him do this? So I thought that was pretty cool. And the thing that Harry did, and again, I've done this over and over again. A good investigator, you just don't write the report and then set it down. You reread it over and over because you look at it at different eyes. Especially when you get new evidence. If you get new evidence, then you start all over and read over the investigative book. And this time they call it the murder book, but you read it over and over again as the investigation develops. So.
And it's constantly being amended. It's just a work in progress.
So then, after he reads after he rereads the murder book over and over again, he then, based on what he found the night before in chapter 1 about the pawn ticket, and then he found the connection with the FBI investigation, he pops up at the FBI bureau. I mean, and what I love again,
just walks on in. Hey guys.
Right. Well, he did. Well, I can tell you right now, you want to get the natural surprise or the natural
reaction.
It's a reaction. That's an investigative technique that we do. And Harry's, I don't care who you're going to talk to, FBI or witness on the scene. You don't. Very rarely do we knock on the door and schedule an interview. At least I did it, but that was very rare, especially in a homicide investigation. He's got to move fast, and so he happens to go knock on the door with FBI, and he meets Special Agent Eleanor Wish. And a couple of things that stand out about Wish that one, he thought that Wish was a guy opposed to a female. Again, we got to look at the time this happened. This is 1992-ish. And even Michael even says it back in the book that, it's not that she couldn't cut it. It's just the fact that mostly that's called the heavy squad, or people who couldn't or wouldn't cut it just doing regular white collar crime. So that was one of the cool things about his surprise about her. And
plus she was
instantaneous. Hot. Well, yeah, plus she was hot too. But what was what I love about how, again, how authentic Michael is when it comes to this particular his series, listeners, there is a direct animus between local law enforcement and any federal, especially the FBI. I mean, there's a built-in innate dislike for each other. I've seen it, I witnessed it, and I felt it.
But it's not unwarranted, though.
Well, no. Well, again, it's funny. It's funny you say that, because no. I'm agree with you, because if someone told me FBI is like an elephant, FBI eats like an elephant but shits like an ant.
Yeah.
So they suck up all this information, but when it comes to trying to get information back from them, you don't get it back. It's not reciprocal.
And it's because the FBI doesn't trust anyone outside their ranks. They think all locals are corrupt, and they just want to use them for what they can and then move on and take the glory for themselves. And some of that's based on true events, but come on, they're very patronizing and condescending and do the pat on your head and treat you as a gopher. And it's like, let's get something straight. We're all adults here. You're no better than me. We just have different functions. But when you show up with adults and you're condescending and demeaning, yeah, that's not going to work, especially with police, because most of us are alpha type personalities.
Right. So, when he walks up to there and so there's going to be this instantaneous push-pull with the FBI. Again, I'm saying any federal bureau, any federal agency, but more specifically with the FBI. And there's a couple of different power plays that go, I don't know if the listeners have picked up on it, but in this instance with Eleanor, the fact that he shows up unaccounted for, that's a power play on Bosch's part. Let's call it out. Then two, she doesn't invite him in. She shuts the door behind, the door locks. She doesn't invite him in and said, "Oh, what's going on? What do you talk about?" And so then he plays do you have any coffee back there? I've been, then she makes him wait. If you're just going to show up, then they're going to make you wait. And so she makes him wait. Then they go back and get coffee. So then they go into the banner back and forth. And then he goes into why he's there and the whole 9 yards. Now, and back in their group of their squad bay, their equivalent to a squad bay, which I've witnessed, is, again, being a state and local. Our furniture is pretty old. It's usually hand-me-downs, but as Michael described this, it was more of a law office type of thing. And when he goes back there, he's talking to her, but there's some guy on the phone just saying, it's so cliche, but it's true. They think sometimes the FBI does not understand. Look, we're all investigators.
No, you're just a local.
Stop it. But it's just push, pull. And then what happens, what you had mentioned earlier, she threw a cheap shot at him, about his business card,
right.
Because most federal agencies have nice gold colored cards, to give out, and most local people, we make our own. Or like Harry did, you take them and you stamp them and then you give them out, that type of thing.
Yeah, I thought that was funny.
Yeah, it was. So again, he's at the FBI. He's going through this back and forth with Eleanor Wish. And he tells her about his investigation, and she's not giving up too much information about what's going on. And he's kind of surprised. He's like, "Wait a minute, you kind of, and you're not reciprocating in a way that he would think. If you have a break in a case that they've had for this long time, why aren't you more reciprocal, or not reciprocating, or being responsive, I guess is a better word, to the information I'm giving you. Then I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
So then she gives him, well, look, I don't think I can help you out. You should have asked for help through the more official notice route. And then he can't believe it. He said, well, because he shows her the copy of the pawn bracelet that he got from the pawn shop, the Polaroid, excuse me. And she says to him, oh, well, you think I can have hold that? Again, if you're cops and you're listening to this, if you give the FBI anything, you're not getting it back.
But it's also scary too how one little piece of evidence like this pawn ticket can open up the doors and take you down this rabbit hole. Like, wait a minute, it's linking to previous crimes that links to the FBI.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so it goes back to what we said originally in the first episode. You can't overlook anything. You can't rush through. You never know what that one little piece of evidence can open up.
Right, and it's usually because you're rushed, or you got to have a habit of keep rereading things with new information. You read the same thing over and over again, but you look at it through a different prism with the new information you have for the investigation. Yeah. But then as he leaves out, he says no, but he takes the Polaroid, puts it in Rourke, or the guy who was on the phone, quote unquote, said and puts it in his face. Said, well, he's seen it right now, and he walks out the door. So after he leaves this whole scene, this whole particular portion of this particular chapter where Harry and Eleanor Wishe are going back and forth, that is a power play. And I would say at this particular point, Eleanor won because she didn't give him anything. And
he did. So he exposed himself.
Right. He exposed himself. He gave up a lot. But so then after that, he then goes into he gets a page. Again, we talk about pagers. He gets a page from his partner Edgar. And remember their agreement in the prior chapter was Edgar was just supposed to go over to the VA and then pull any information he could on Meadows. And when he got there, he gives a call back and say, "Hey, look, Harry," and he's pretty much the FBI has that file. So then it clicks in Harry's head. Like, now that's why she knew this all along. They were just playing me. And so then he gets a better epiphany. He said, check and find out if they have my case jacket also. Again, because he told her, which he wasn't hiding from anyone, that he was a tunnel rat with Meadows. He knew Meadows before. So as he's doing that, as he's waiting for Edgar to give him a call back, he sees Eleanor leave out, and he follows her. And just before he follows her, Edgar calls back and say, "Hey, dude, they got your file also. What the hell's going on, Harry? What's the
right?" So here you are. You're walking into the FBI office, and they have a file on you, and you're like, "What the fuck's going on here?"
Right? What the fuck is going on? So,
and I just walked my ass in here.
So he then follows Eleanor, and this is a part of he follows her into this restaurant, and as a good cop, she gets into the back of the restaurant. Again, most cops, when we go into a restaurant establishment, it still drives I still do it, drives my family crazy. I want to sit in the back of the restaurant with my back towards the door, because I want to be able to see what's coming through the front door. And one of the things that I love about what happened here was when he just sits in the booth and sits down with her, and she's shocked, like, "You follow me? You follow me?" Like, uh-oh.
Did I cross the line?
But right. And then she gets up to leave.
Right.
Remember, she gets up to leave, and he grabs her arm. Woo! And the line I like is that Michael wrote, "She smoked him." She smoked him with his eyes, like, "Let
you just fucked up.
Go." I like a woman who has no problem telling a cop who she knows his arm, "Fucker, you gone too far. Let me the fucker go. Don't." But then Harry Smart, he diffused it. He came off real quick. "Hey, look, I'm sorry. I totally understand." They go back and forth with this whole thing about he understands what happened. He understands that it makes sense now that why they gave him the quote unquote official the official title, not the official title, the official route to get information, because they probably pulled anyone who had tunnel experience in Vietnam, and Harry fits that that particular description.
So do you think
good
they
work.
grabbed his file at the same time they grabbed Meadows' file?
Yeah, well, she even says that to him. As they go back and forth, she tells him, you're off the case. And like, what do you mean I'm off the case? Well, look, and she said, look, I didn't want to be the one to tell you, but after you left, we called. A call was made. She didn't say who, but she said a call was made to Lieutenant Pounds, a person on your card, and told him that we thought that the fact that you was too close to this case, he was a friend of yours, that you shouldn't be working this case, and then the FBI would be taking over. And then she goes back and forth and says, you don't know, he tells her, you don't know me, and she said, well, no, I don't know you, but I do know of you. And then she makes reference to, again, probably by this time in the book, this is only in the second chapter, there's all this emphasis and all these different what I'm looking for, all these different indicators that there's something big that happened with the Dollmaker case.
We don't know if he actually had a legitimate killing or not. We don't know.
Right.
But did she call? Wait a minute. Did she call Pounds, or did they call IAD?
Well, it comes up in this chapter. Actually, Rourke called Pound. Rourke called. They call IAD, and so no, they didn't call Pounds. They called IAD, and it looked like Rourke did it, and
Rourke was who? Remind the people who Rourke is.
Okay, Rourke was the supervisor. It seems to be the one who was acting as though he was on the phone while he was listening to Harry describe his investigation to Eleanor Wish. So she actually she started really did like a big she's telling Harry his how was it? I wouldn't call the dossier that FBI wrote up on him. For lack of a better word, they pretty much did a profile. That's a better word. Thank you. A profile on all the different particular people associated who can possibly be suspects. And she knew that he was in he was brought up in an orphanage, that he joined the army, that he went to LAPD. He quickly rose through the department, but because he did things his way, that that was good and bad, and it didn't take much to get him kicked out of the famed RHD to, as they call it, the Hollywood division, the shit division of the department. And so
I was going to say, that place they went to go eat, don't forget, it's a cop hangout. A lot of cops like to go hang out there. Yeah. And we have places like that, and that's where a lot of unofficial meetings are taking place. And it's funny, there's an Easter egg here where the council member is meeting with the gay motorman. Mm-hmm. So I just want to make that noted for the record, that's an important Easter egg that will come down later.
Easter egg, yeah. And again, and it's so interesting. I never wrote a book, so I don't know if this is standard, but all these little reading it back over again, because some people say, well, Phil, how can you read this book over and over again? Because just like the murder book, again, just like I did my investigation, like Harry does his, you read it over and over again, looking at it through fresh eyes, with a different perspective, like, oh, it was right there all along, and I missed that, that type of thing.
It's also kind of funny, too, at the restaurant. This is where you see Harry starting to fall for this Eleanor girl, and it's like, all right, there's the sexual tension right there.
Well, yeah, because the description, I think he noticed a line in her on her cheek, something like that. He wanted to know about that. That's very personal, the way that she carried her weapon. Most law enforcement cops that he knew carried their weapon in a pocketbook.
I don't know if that's tactically sound, but back then,
right back then.
Remember, they were transitioning from revolvers to semi-automatics then. So that's funny.
So, yeah. So, again, let's just keep going. So, yeah. So, she pretty much tells him that, hey, you're going to be cut off this investigation. But then what I love about Harry, he threw out there. He said, "You know what? You got me off this case. You're going to put me back on the case." And she goes, well, "What for? What are you going to do?" He said, "I'll take what I have to the Times. I'll take my information to the news." And he'll say, "Hey, you know, you had a guy, and then all of a sudden you had him in here because you probably brought him in here and interviewed him, and you lost him. Now he's dead. Now this case is dead. I don't think that's going to go over too well for Rourke or the FBI." And then she came up back over top of him and said, "You know what? I'll tell Rourke that, but I'll tell him to call your bluff because I don't believe you'll do that."
And then that's the introduction to Irving.
Right. So then we transition to it leaves like that. Well, no, even before then, she asked him a question to the point of, "Hey," she says, you know, because she was talking about the whole bank. What got him kicked out of RHD was that shooting in the Dollmaker case, and one of the things that the Lewis and Clark had found a witness who said that they had told Harry that he keeps a toupee in the nightstand. Again, that was one of the justifications. Harry said, "Hey, look, he was reaching for something in the nightstand. I shot him because of that, and it just so happened to be this toupee." Well, she asked him, "Well, Harry, is that really true? Did
That's
you get a witness?"
Funny.
And he goes, "Well, don't they always tell the truth?" And then walks away. So again, you know, to even things back up, I've given you enough information. I'm not going to give you no more. So we get a sense of Michael goes into, again, always character development here. We get a look into Deputy Chief Irving.
I love that guy.
You know, the junkyard dog
Yup.
of the LAPD. And no matter where you are, no matter what department you're with, every department has a junkyard dog. Excuse me.
I'm not going to name ours, but they sound alike in physical stature. They look alike, and I don't want to miss that. But god damn, I'm like, they nailed this shit.
Right. And so every department has a junkyard dog. Every department has a deputy chief. You know, being retired and looking now at you know, taking it up different elevations. Because again, I never wanted and or aspired to be anything but a detective. But if I was command, I can understand you want the department to fear a junkyard dog, because if you didn't,
well,
you
need that enforcer. You do, and
right.
Let me just make this perfectly clear. I hated every one of ours. They seemed out of touch,
right.
callous.
Right.
Fucking idiots. Let's just
not
call it what it
understanding.
not understand. But someone needs to do the dirty work for the chief for the greater good to keep the department moving forward. Having said that, though, there's some guys that take this shit just a little too serious, and the lines get blurred when it becomes where it goes from professional to personal. Like, they can't let this shit go. Like, they have it made up in their mind. Officer Allen is fucked up, and no matter what, I'm going to stay on top of him to get him. That's where you become a detriment to the department, I think.
Right. Well, detriment to morale. I mean, it just
you know, there's a huge domino effect everywhere,
and that's what goes back to one of the things I like about this podcast. I want to always relay our side. When I say our, as law enforcement side, again, we addressed it, and we'll keep addressing it throughout this journey. Neither myself or my brother, we're not saying that cops are perfect and they do everything right.
We're perfect. Are you kidding?
Right.
Shit.
And so, but at sometimes there has to be, like, one of the things that I think, I'm gonna just give you a case in point. Most police departments, their complaint department are not filled with people who ever rode or been in law enforcement shoes. So how can you judge someone if you've never been in their shoes? So one of the things that most departments have done was, if you're going to be on a citizen's complaint board, you had to at least ride in the car with officers before you can be ascended to the board.
And that's still not enough.
No, it's not enough, but at least it gives you some insights what these guys are doing or dealing with. and goes back to I don't want to deviate too far off the Deputy Chief Irving, is you got to weigh that. You have to weigh, okay, no one's perfect. And one of the things that I think what made me a very successful law enforcement investigator was at the time I came on this department, I was allowed to make a mistake without such consequences that you were scared to make a decision.
But see, things are changing now.
I know they've changed. They've done.
Yeah,
and I hope that I hope I'm doing it justice by the listeners can understand what I mean by. Does that make sense to you?
No, it does. But you also, just to be your brother, you have to get over that shit because you're in the world of CNN and Instagram and Facebook now, and they don't want that. So before you get sidetracked off the friggin' book, Phil, dial it back in because you're going off on a tangent.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, focus. Okay, so
we're talking about Irving. Yes,
right. So, Michael gives a good description of the junkyard dog. And I love the description. And like my brother said, every department has one. And, looking at it now at a different elevation, every department needs a junkyard dog as a commander.
Yeah, and then also, he describes how stressed out he gets. He clenches his jaw so hard he has to constantly replace his molars. Like, how fucked up do you have to be where you can clench your teeth so much that you just go in for the dentist, like, yeah, need some new molars and get implants twice a year? Like, that's a dude that's really screwed in the head. He's in charge of IAD. Like, you have no shot with this guy.
Right. I love that. Then we get into Michael also gets into his mannerisms, and again we know he doesn't like acronyms. He likes long. You don't say FBI. You got to say the Federal Bureau of Investigations to him. So they say I'm a very slow and deliberate man. I love that line. I'm a very slow and deliberate man.
You think he's like that with his wife? He's just slow and deliberate. No acronyms, baby.
Exactly. No acronyms.
Sorry.
We digress.
Right.
Focus, Alan. Focus.
I'm trying.
Then he gets into Michael again. We're taking our time to set this up, listeners, just so you can get the players. Also, he also gets because they're so true, and he also gets into the ID and detectives who were on his case, the Dollmaker case, and the detectives Lewis and Clark. And again, go back to what my brother was just saying about. You get these nicknames, just so happened to be one detective's named Pierce Lewis and the other one's named Don Clark. But now they're going to be known because their partners is Lewis and Clark, and then everyone says, okay, Lewis and Clark going on the expedition.
That's right.
So.
And these are the guys that are directly responsible for helping get Bosch kicked out of the robbery homicide unit. So we don't exactly like them.
Right. Well, and then how Michael describes them, they both have close cropped hair. They both wear conservative gray silk suits. I'm like,
yeah, they probably only have sex in a missionary position. That's
right.
just
and
they schedule it.
Right. And one of the things that you always, we always Joan on IAD investigators was we called them, their shiny ass because their suits are worn from the ass because they're so used to just sitting behind a desk. So again. Michael, I love this. These are the little nuances that I like about this book because he's been there. We see it. So, one of the things that I love, again, how true Michael Connelly's writing is. One of the things that he did, how can I say this without? If you haven't got interviewed or interrogated about IED,
that's fun.
I don't. Well, it's not fun, but two, I'm gonna look at you weird, like especially if you got time on. I mean, how many cops have you known with time on has not gotten interviewed by IED for something?
I don't know. That's like one of those things. Like happens late at night. You regret hooking up with the you hooked up with a girl of questionable character, and the next morning your friends are like, "Well, what happened?" You don't really talk about it. Having said that, I've been in the room. I went in for incident A. I was feeling confident about it, and they literally turned it upside down and came out of left field. It's like, what the hell? And then all of a sudden, the small room got smaller, and I just choking on stress.
Right.
It's not fun. It's just not cool.
And what was cool about this is that Harry, before he got in, and he's only been partners with Edgar now for I think 8 months. He said. So if you've been partners with that short of time, you don't know how. And we don't have these type of conversations. Hey, have you ever got in trouble with ID? No one has that conversation with a new partner.
But you don't know how they're going to stand up under pressure. So it's like,
right. That's what I was getting to. Right?
Yeah.
Right. So the fact that Harry has been in the barrel, before with ID, and he doesn't know if Edgar has, and he kind of feels like Edgar didn't do anything wrong. He was kind of wondering if Edgar can stand up to pressure. So, right
don't
off
forget,
the bat,
they're being called into the principal's office to go talk to Pounds. That's what I felt like. And it's like, you got Edgar who's having a psychotic meltdown. Like, what the fuck's going on? What's going on? And you got Bosch is like, dude, you know how many times I've been to the principal's office? Relax, bro. We're going to be all right.
Just relax. Let's see what they got. Yeah. Let's not give it up. Just see what they got. And this, again, if you... if you've gone in a number of times, like we are inferring we have, how it's a push and pull, and I like how Michael wrote that whole scene between the two. Well, again, and it's the truth. And one of the things that people don't understand, especially young cops. The truth is your shield and sword. Just lay it out.
That's so funny you said that, because I even have a note about that.
Well, go ahead.
It's funny. Everyone stresses out over the truth. And if you give your supervisor the truth, they're more equipped to defend you and get you off of it. You got to give them a little faith that they're going to back you up, or at least get you out of the jam as it's little damage as possible. So Edgar stressing out, wondering how to cover up, what to do, blah blah. It's like, dude, you're making it actually worse. You want to tell the truth, but you want to do it in a controlled way.
Right.
It's like playing cards. You don't want to reveal everything up front. There's a method to the madness. So it's like Harry, being the senior guy, he can walk Edgar through something like that, and that's what I liked about this whole thing.
Definitely. And then right on again. Just like the combative nature that we described with the FBI, when ID walks in there, you can't act like a victim. You act like a victim, they're gonna eat you up. And so the first thing Harry says, "Well, Jed, it looks like we're off on a Lewis and Clark expedition."
Just jab after jab.
Right? Like I don't, I don't care. I don't care. And so then they go back and forth with this whole thing. And I think another surprise is after they start Pounds, after they finish, they're talking Pounds to Pounds. No, when they start talking, Harry says, "I want a lawyer." But I love, Pounds, you got to respect him. He said, "Fuck that. We're going to talk right now. If you don't want to talk right now," he tells Edgar, "We're going to bounce your ass out here with that $800 suit." And then Harry, I don't know what the hell's going to happen to you, but you won't be working any type cases. So I like that.
I thought that was hilarious.
Oh, it was great. Oh, then when he starts talking, and again, it's this push and pull back and forth. But then in the same instance, the reason I'm laughing is I can see this happening, because somebody accused me of being this way. Let me just,
you're struggling there.
So what Lewis pulls out a tape recorder, it puts it on the desk, and goes, "What the hell is that?" And then Pounds said, "Turn that shit off."
Right. That was awesome.
I love that. I loved it. So then, he goes, Harry again tells the truth about what happened. Hey, we went out. And what I loved about this is that after he finishes telling the story, he said, "Look, Edgar didn't know anything about this."
Right.
So Pounds look at Edgar and says, "So it sounds like he specifically kept you off of it because, to protect his end." He says, "No. And this is the part I love about Edgar. He says, "Well, he was right up front with me with that. And the count on it was Sunday night, and it was just a hype in a barrel. Who thought that it would go anywhere? So we couldn't call no one else out on that, which is not really really true, but it helped. I like Edgar at that particular moment because he covered for Bosch like that.
And,
I like that.
and they covered for each other. And then the lieutenant did the right thing. It's like, hey, look, this really doesn't involve you, Edgar. Get out.
Right.
Which I thought was awesome.
So then again, Bosch goes over the whole 9 yards, gets interaction with FBI, and the fact of where the investigation stood so far. One of the things that but
don't forget though, by laying it all out for Pounds and IAD, instantly it disarmed IAD and took the teeth out of him, and Pounds was able to be supportive and actually back him up. It's like, well, wait a minute, this is our matter, so there's more to this. It has legs, but if you guys have something else to do with him, I'm going to leave the room, and you guys go right ahead and conduct your internal investigation with him, which I thought was hilarious. It's my favorite part of the whole book.
Well, and then, again, let's keep on. Let's talk, because I want to talk about that. One of the things I loved about this particular interaction, the first thing, as soon as Pound gets up, Harry pops a cigarette.
In a no smoking environment.
In a no smoking environment.
Right.
And so then.
And IAD's like, they're having a seizure. Like, what are you doing? You can't do that.
Right. Like, fuck off. So then the best line was.
Makes me want to smoke. And I don't smoke.
So then they open the knucklehead opens his briefcase again and puts out the damn recorder. So Harry looks at it and goes, could you loosen these handcuffs, please?
And they're like, what do you mean handcuffs? What handcuffs?
Said,
there's no
Detective Bosch is not handcuffed right now. He said, just the two guys who beat me up and tied me up.
Handcuffed and they're violating my civil rights. I need a lawyer right now.
I love it. Again, it's that push and pull. And he knows how far he can go with these guys, because no matter what he says right now, these two guys, there's some IED guys that love locking up cops.
Yep.
There are some ID guys that all they get off on, and I never understood. Now, I've known both. Some guys just say, look, dude, I mean, they do, they police the police, and they do, a service to the citizens. And I'm never going to say get rid of ID, but again, it's how you go into it. Do you go into it reveling that you got somebody, or do you go into it, begrudgingly saying, but I got to do my job, because if I don't do my job, then how can the citizens trust what we do generally? So I get that.
Yeah,
I get that. So moving forward, Harry's told that he's off the case, stay away from the case. So after he finishes with the IID guys, he calls Donovan up. He's now still working the case. I love it. He's like, whatever, what the fuck? I'm still working the case.
Right. What are you gonna do?
Right, and he gets some good information from Donovan. Come to find out that the heroin that was in the needle was 55% pure heroin. Which, again, you've been around.
What's the nickname for that? What's the nickname for that?
Well, smack.
No, when it's that pure. No, it's called a hot load.
Oh, well, it was a hot load because you used it. Yeah,
right.
Definitely. Yeah, when you actually use it.
Which is usually used to kill somebody. Like,
definitely,
if you want someone to OD, make it look like,
Well, I thought when you said what's the name of it, that's what called heroin smack. So that's what I thought you meant by that. But yeah, as a hot load, that no one uses that pure heroin, because then you would die.
Yeah, it's just too good.
Right. So that, I think by this time Meadows was killed, so it's definitely a homicide. It wasn't an OD.
Right.
He definitely was killed. So that was one of the cool things about, not cool, but again, Harry's still investigating the case. Then he also then goes in there and talks to the king. The king is, is always, back then, I got, just to put people's perspective, the computers were far and few between, and when you had one person who really knew how to work the computers, and she was sitting in front of the computer, the crash computer, and they call the crash computer as community resource against street hoodlums. I love moniker. I think. Michael said it, and Harry said, if you are a police officer in the department and your unit doesn't have some type of acronym,
it's not a real unit. Yeah,
you ain't shit. And I think we talked about that before. So here we are again with a moniker, And again, these not Monica, these
Acronym.
these acronyms. Thank you. So we, Detective King, she works it, and just again flashback to chapter 1 where Harry saw some graffiti with the initials SHA. So he goes to her, and this is right after he talks to Donovan. He pulls the 911 tape out. He listens to the 911 tape, and he gets a sense of who called it in. So, long story, the readers, they go into she goes into the database, and she comes up with a particular person who's of interest, Edward Neese. But also too, this database, what I wanted to point out, this database had date of birth, addresses, and of any and everyone who the police officers came involved in, field investigation or field interrogation reports, those type of things. Yeah, those type of things are the lifeblood of investigative work. And this, and again, you and I were, last podcast we were going back and forth when it concerns the patrol officers. Now, this is one thing I tell you: any investigator who does not revere and help out a patrol does it at their investigative peril, because patrols are out there every day, all the time, knocking. They know the street. You're there once in a while.
Let me translate that for you normal people in layman's terms. Basically, if you don't talk to the street cop, the guy walking the beat, then you really don't know shit what's going on.
Right. Yeah,
You're a little too fancy for all that stuff.
So Harry then gets he then comes to find out that he pulls Sharky's car, his file, and sees that Sharky.
That's his nickname.
Right, Sharky is his nickname. Edwin Neese, thank you, is his name, and it goes by Sharky. That fits the moniker. And he was locked up for gang graffiti in that area. So we're thinking, maybe this was the witness who called 911. So he called Bosch calls his probationary officer, and his probationary officer tells him some information about Neese. But then it's Bosch in the head. That's the same guy who we saw earlier in the day
with the dreads.
Yeah, with the dreadlocks, who was locked up earlier. So
who was talking smack to the cop and got smacked around a little bit.
And so then, but it was interesting, and then you can kind of feel for Sharky, because one of the things is that one of the times that he was locked up in that pipe before. So it's he should know, for someone to be locked up for sleeping in the pipe. You say, well, what is wrong with, what is his life so bad that he instead of going home, he sleeps into a pipe?
Well, there's two ends to it. It's like, well, how bad does the kid have to be for his parents not to want him at home? And then how bad does the parents have to be for the kid not to want to be at home? Like, what the fuck is going on? And then as that character development unrolls, that's where you see how desperate his mom, Sharky's mom, is to earn money. Like, what was she like? We find out that she's on the 900 numbers talking sexual, and it's like, well, she has a sultry voice, but as Michael Connelly describes her, she is far from that. So it's like, as a kid, like if you're a teenager, early 20s, and you're like, there's mom again talking about blowjobs and earning money, and she's going to tell me to clean my room. Get the fuck out of here.
So I'm going to be home.
Yeah.
So Bosch rushed to her house to try to interview Sharky, and she pretty much gives Bosch the blow off. Say, look, he comes home, he leaves out. He's not here. It's not my job to find him. It's your job. Right. And even Bosch said, look, it might be something very important. He might be in danger. He goes, yeah, right. Bullshit. I heard that before.
Yeah, it's Sharky. What is he? But then, likewise, you see how she, with her choice of work, lays the groundwork for how he earns money. And that's where Michael Connelly got really real and really screwed up my head, because he's showing like this guy, to make money, would take nude pictures of himself and then sell them to gay guys. And it's like, well, wait a minute, how fucked up are things where to earn money, you're going to take pictures of yourselves and sell them to gay guys, and you're not gay. It's like, that's that entrepreneurial spirit. But damn, if he's the apple, mom's the tree.
It's funny. I've read this book probably 4 times, and I never made that connection. Wow. I love it. That's what I like about this. No,
I never make that connection. You're a detective.
Well, again, what we say, if you're not learning, you're not growing, and so
I don't know.
I never profess being the best. But no, that I never put the connection. She's making money off being in the sexual industry. Let him make money off. He's doing the same thing. I never put two and two together like that before. Wow. Thank you. Okay.
And then it's funny. Like as this chapter keeps unfolding, Irving, he gets briefed by Lewis and Clark, and then it's basically like, look, he's on to something legitimate, and Irving's like, I don't care, I don't like this guy, we're going to stay on him anyway. And it's like, that's the specific line I'm talking about. Like, yes, the department needs a junkyard dog, but goddamn, when it's time to back off. But Irving's personal feelings get involved, and he wants them to keep on target, which you're taking away from legitimate investigations, and you're targeting an awesome detective.
Right. And let me see. So Bosch stops at the store on the way home after he finished talking to Sharky's mom. He's kind of dejected. He said, well, that's it. I'm done. In the morning time, ID is going to call me and tell me I got to report to ID and or I'm going to be off the investigative desk. So he gets home, and then he has a couple of phone messages, and he deduces that the phone message is from Clark, because he can tell his voice. It says something pretty much, FBI might have called it off, but we're going to still investigate you. We're watching you. Right. And he played it a couple of times, like, okay, what the fuck happened?
Yeah. What did you do to this guy?
Right. Well, better yet, he said, did his lame threat with the FBI work? So then he gets a call from Lieutenant Pounds and says, hey, FBI says they might have been harsh. They overlooked. They might have been too harsh in their initial thinking of his posture in the case, and he's being reassigned to work with FBI in this case. And one of the classic lines that I like is that Bosch puts back on Pounds, because he said, when they were fighting in his office earlier, he said, you know what, Pounds, you said you did me a favor. Man, I did you a favor. Pretty much to say, because no one wanted to go to homicide and give it, go to Hollywood and give the 100% that I've been doing. I've been working my ass off for you. I'm pretty sure your closure rate has skyrocketed, which makes you look good. So please, yes, you assigned me to the homicide table, but believe me, buddy, I made you look good also. And that's what, to me, that was implied in there back and forth at this instant on the phone call when Pounds tells him he's going to be working with the FBI.
Right, which I love. Now,
yeah,
also,
I do too.
Something I wanted to touch on real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's kind of funny throughout all of these books how he pays tribute and homage to Stephen King. It's really weird how there's always these cameos. But then, close that for a second, as we go back to Sharky, and you're watching Sharky in real time commit these scams and set people up. You're seeing him with his friends on the wall. They're looking at guys come and go from, I think it was a liquor store, just driving down, or the trolling, so to speak.
Right.
And it's in the gay area, and it's like, okay, what are these guys up to? And it's like, all right, I'm watching this scam unfold. It's like, here comes a guy. They make eye contact. Sharky gives him the look. The guy invites him over to the car. He's walking over to the car, and he tells his friends, hey, you got my back. And you're wondering as a reader or listener, you're like, where is this going? This is freaky. I don't know where this is going, but I know it's fucked up, and I'm getting sucked in. Right. So you're seeing this play out. The guy takes Sharky to his house. Sharky walks in the house. You see Sharky lock the door. You're like, that's kind of weird.
Unlock the door.
I'm sorry. Yeah, unlock the door. He unlocked the door. You're like, this is weird. Guy offers him some food, and he tells him, hey, it's not my first time. I know what's up. And Sharky's playing along. I'm like, what am I about to witness? This is crazy. And right then, instantly, I had cases where drug dealers got robbed by bad guys and hogtied. Yeah. I'm just thinking like, oh boy, all right, this is just like this.
Well, what we used to call those, remember, we used to call them crack rentals. Remember back in the day, we used to call them crack rentals.
So long story short, Sharky's friends came in and boom, boom. we're gonna knock this guy out.
They beat his ass and they robbed him.
What the fuck? And then the chapter ends. And it's like, that's crazy. I'm like, that's what that moment, because that came out of the blue. You have a potential witness/victim who's scared, and you're sympathetic to him. You're like, oh man, this poor kid's caught up into some murder and something, and he's a witness. I feel bad for him. No, he's a straight killer. Holy shit. So all the sympathy went right out the window, and I'm like, I'm sucked in, but the chapter ended.
Quick, do you have a everyone counts or no one counts moment?
Wow, yeah, I guess I should have put some thought into that one. There's a couple. It has to be the boy Sharky, and I'm gonna say it again. What drives a kid to take pictures of himself naked to sell them for money? Right there. Forget the guy in the pipe, forget the IED, forget Irving, forget Bosch. That's fucked up, because how does that cycle break? So right there, I'm thinking the mom, she talks sex. Boy, he sells himself, and he's willing to degrade himself and do unthinkable things just for $1. So right there, he's my everyone counts. That's the guy I want to fight for right there. As screwed up as he is, it's like that's our future.
Well, I guess this is 2-0 for Edgar. I like Edgar's.
You relate to that square, don't you?
Well, no, it's just, it's easy to pick up. It's easy to say Bosch. Everything Bosch does is the best thing, and everything he does, that was his sun shines out of Bosch's ass. And in this book, I mean, it is called the Harry Bosch. We are talking about Harry Bosch, but. What makes Bosch effective is the people around him. I think they are very influential characters, and his partner at this point is Edgar. And Edgar could have threw him under the bus, but for him to be in that moment with Lieutenant Pounds in front of IAD to say, no, he was up front with me and come up with this non-rehearsed story to say, we were going to call somebody, but why would we? Who's going to come out on a Sunday night to take this body? I kind of like that about Edgar. Again, so right now, 2 chapters in, for me, Edgar is 2-0. Alan, how can people get in contact with us?
You can follow us on our Facebook page at the Thin Blue Line Podcast, or on our Twitter account. And you can also download us and subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcast from. Okay, so that'll wrap us up for this chapter. And what we're going to be doing, the next chapter up is going to be part 3, May 22nd. So thanks a lot for listening with us, and we look forward to the next time. Stay safe. We're 10-7 for the remainder.